I'm going to introduce Sophia Veltfort. Sophia Veltfort's work has appeared or is forthcoming in the Alaska Quarterly Review, the Chicago Tribune Online, Nelson Argren Finalist, the Harvard Review, Harvard Isthmus, J Journal, New Writing on Justice, Post Road, Quiddity, and the Saturday Evening Post Online. After graduating from Yale, she studied at Oxford and the University of East Anglia on a Marshall Scholarship. My phone was going to die when I say the Marshall Scholarship. I know. The Marshall Scholarship. So,
thank you for the introduction. I'm going to read a short story called Olivia. Next to the passenger window, a man with a toddler in his right arm and a small child at his side looked down at Jackie. She squinted up at him. "You're parked in 2 spaces," he said. Jackie looked over her shoulder. She imagined he was probably right. Yeah, she said. "Sorry." He shifted the child on his hip but made no motion to leave. Jackie looked around the parking lot to see how egregious her fault might be in his eyes. There were 2 empty spaces in the next row and another in the row after that. Jackie wondered how long until she could return to her book. She had been in the middle of a sentence when the knuckles had rapped and salvaged the bones Esh's father had pushed her from the tree branches down into the rising floodwaters of Katrina, and Skeeta had just jumped in after her. The puppy in Jackie's lap ululated into the Kroger's parking lot. Daily he delivered the sound and the fury. He held whole libraries in his bark. Jackie pulled him back from the window. His 8-month heart beat quickly under her fingertips. If only there was a way for Skeeta to hold China, the pit bull, safe as he rescued Esh. Jackie had little experience with pit bulls, but would guess a young female might weigh 40, 50 pounds, depending. Probably more wet. If she could just get back to her sentence, see exactly where Skeeta and China were in the storm. "You don't think you should move it?" the man asked. Jackie blinked. For a moment she lost her place in the palimpsest of storylines she held parallel. Why a stranger was reprimanding her, what Esh was doing in a tree, what Jackie was doing in this parking lot in Central Virginia. She had the feeling of having skipped a page with important context. "Well, no, since I don't drive," she said, reluctant to apologize for this when he did not seem particularly inconvenienced. "It makes no difference that I'm in the car, don't you see?" she wanted to say. "You wouldn't yell at an empty car, or a car with just a puppy in it. The current situation is for all intents and purposes the same." Her eyes flicked back to her book. Clearly she had breached some social contract with the car's crooked alignment. Her answer seemed to have both confirmed this and widened the rift. Everyone her age drove in Virginia. "I don't even live here," she wanted to say, but it occurred to her that that was not true. To say so would be lying, in contrast to the not lying she was doing about not driving, regardless of the man's personal opinion. For suddenly it seemed just as likely that he thought she was using "don't" to mean "won't," rather than "can't" or "am not legally permitted to since I don't have a license, since until recently I lived in New York where people take the subway generally when it works." That this was somehow precisely the kind of thing her mother would have expected to happen in the South made Jackie more inclined to resolve the situation with mutual understanding. She was no northern cliché. She definitely thought it was good the South remained in the Union. "The thing is," she explained, "the person who parked, whose car this is, went into the store. He should be back soon." As soon as she said it, it sounded ominous. Whenever you said someone could be somewhere, could be counted on to do something, to wait for you, of course they weren't and couldn't be. For instance, in The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which she had watched with her mom over New Year's, as soon as Guy said that he knew Genevieve would wait for him, you knew she wouldn't. Jackie tried to remember if Isaac had said he knew she would wait for him as he picked up eggs and milk. The man said, "Look, what did you say your name was? Victoria? Olivia?" Jackie looked up sharply. "I don't know. Is yours Archibald? Is it Trey?" Across a series of social circles with no possible overlap, people had begun calling her Olivia. It had started a few months ago. "I'm so glad to see you," a man she had never met said into her ear at a party the previous spring. He embraced her, pulled away, and looked warmly into her face. She waited for him to register his mistake. When he didn't, she understood the error was hers, and she acquiesced into the rapport she did not remember. "Yeah, me too," she said, and meant it, almost. "It's been so long," he said more eagerly. He crossed his arms and widened his stance. As he told her about his contracts class and the professor's position on the financial benefits of euthanizing and replacing the family cat after vacation, rather than paying for a cat sitter, she thought for sure she would have remembered him. When he slipped in the name Olivia, she might have overlooked it, had the word "you" not tethered it to her. "But tell me what you've been doing, Olivia." There seemed no way forward but flight. If the only people subsequently to call her Olivia had turned out to be connected to this law student, she might have understood that this misunderstanding had spawned the others that ensued. But when she moved with Isaac to Virginia, and even their new neighbors periodically misremembered her name, she started to think something was going on. Jackie didn't even sound like Olivia. But the encounters were so banal. "Hi, Louis, how are the Samoyeds doing today?" "Oh, hey, Olivia, they're doing very well, thank you." And so repetitious. "Actually, Louis, it's Jackie." "Yeah." "Oh, that's right, I do always make that mistake, don't I?" That they had an uneradicable quality she was not sure how to counter. If she'd had any friends in Virginia, or even known anyone besides Isaac, the effect might have been diluted. She could see how it might have been funny. But as it was, the only people who reliably knew her name were Isaac, the puppy, her mother, and the old friends who texted less and less frequently, and the 7 students she tutored over FaceTime and Skype. Within the pool of neighbors, postal workers, cashiers, and receptionists, her identity seemed perpetually vulnerable. Even at the medical center, as Jackie waited to have her blood tested for Lyme disease, the woman entering her insurance information asked, "Is that Olivia with an O or with an A? You get such a variety these days, you just never know, do you?" Of course, it occurred to Jackie that having one's name mistaken was only one of the more evident ways of being misconstrued. Surely people misread her all the time and she just didn't realize. In college, for instance, people had often thought she came for money because she wore a Barber jacket. But Jackie didn't know where her mom had gotten the money for that coat, only that she had insisted Jackie have it for warmth and to look like she belonged. "I never felt like I belonged on those East Coast campuses," she said. "You will." Sometimes when falling asleep or brushing her teeth or watching water boil, Jackie scrutinized which of her features suggested Olivia. What did Olivia even mean? She had known 2 Olivias in her life, and one had been extraordinarily wealthy. She wasn't sure about the other. Or did it have less to do with money and more with poise? Both Olivias had been queen bees. Was she like that? It seemed laughable. She commanded the attention of no one. That wasn't entirely true. These days she had no attentions available to command. But once, in an inexplicable aberration that had lasted a whole 11 months, she had shone. When people told jokes, they looked for her reaction. When there were parties, they asked if she would be there. The giddiness, the elation of this attention was unlike anything she had ever known. And then, like fog that receded in the night, it had ended. This Olivia business was barely more bizarre, just less enjoyable, more troubling. She began wondering how the Olivia she had been mistaken for might comport herself in Jackie's life. It seemed plausible that Olivia would combine Jackie's most polished qualities with others Jackie would benefit from acquiring. She thought of Olivia when she met neighbors walking their dogs, and tried to channel the friendly affability she suspected Olivia would possess. Olivia was of particular value when Jackie tutored. Often she had wished for a more durable avatar she could send out in her stead over Skype, the way she once had done while playing the Oregon Trail. Usually she had picked the names Sarah or sometimes Julia, depending on how much she had felt prepared to lose. Sarah, with whom she identified more, took no risks, and never made it across the rapids. Usually she died of snakebite or dysentery. Tutoring as herself, she felt naked and exposed. Olivia wouldn't feel that way. Jackie felt certain. As Olivia, neither did Jackie. Her voice came out steadier, lower-pitched, less squeaky. She imagined her skin clearer, more radiant. Even her teeth felt whiter. Muscles seemed to develop in her upper arms and abdomen. After tutoring, she cleaned the kitchen. She scrubbed the grime from the stovetop and the sink basin. She Swiffered the floors. When Isaac came home, she did not berate him for the time she had lost cleaning up bits of egg that he, and only he, had spattered. She boiled her eggs and that had dried on the burner. She welcomed him home with ease and a kiss. They watched a movie, and when they went to bed, he stayed facing her. She noticed that Isaac smiled more. He became less defensive, less ready to assume Jackie was moping or seething or otherwise antagonistic to his dreams of an easy, amiable domestic life. They had more sex. She wasn't sure what kept the illusion up, her desire to emulate Olivia, or her desire to hide from Isaac the fact that it was an act. "How can you think this is me?" she wanted to scream at him. But Olivia wouldn't do that. The texts he sent were warmer, more forthcoming. They seemed more genuine, less a performative speech act intended to convince them both he wanted to be home. It troubled her that as she acted more, he acted less, as though what she had thought was their life was only a performance Isaac had been at pains to sustain. The wedding they had been planning in theory moved ahead in practice. They picked a venue, picked a day, told their folks. They argued in good humor about cake. If at times the situation worried her, and it felt like she was cheating in some way, she was both troubled and quieted by the fact that, all things considered, she was doing so much better as a human in the world. She went to trivia night with Isaac and his colleagues. They won. She stopped wearing sweatpants, reverted to pants. She lifted weights. The muscles she had imagined began to materialize. Her students scored higher on their tests. This should not be the way to success, she wanted to protest. But to whom? And what was the problem? It was true that she read less. She had a few pages left of Salvage the Bones, but finishing seemed less urgent somehow. Books had lent her worlds when she was lonely. She wasn't now. It was also true that sometimes Olivia seemed to contain nuances that did not sit well with Jackie. There was no delicate way to put this. Certain positions she knew to be wrong, that men should be free to pursue women without calls of misconduct, that maybe cake makers should be free to turn away gay couples, that maybe it wasn't such a problem to retain Confederate statues in public parks, began to creep into her subconscious as the knee-jerk reactions that emerged first these days. When they did, Jackie was disgusted. Where did that come from, she asked herself. But she knew. At night, between the snores of Isaac and the dog, she stared wide-eyed into the darkness of their room and worried she was exchanging her life force with that of a malevolent phantom. She began limiting her Olivia time, cordoning off time to be Jackie. It never went well. She and Isaac bickered more. She convinced herself that the distinction was arbitrary, that everything about her was her own anyway, so what was the point of separating where one part ended and another began? Of all of her students, the one who seemed to benefit most from Olivia was a round-faced blonde sophomore in college with whom Jackie worked on essays for English, art history, and anthropology. Jackie often believed that if you put the work in, your subconscious would match your efforts with strokes of insight. But rarely had she seen such swift improvement in a student's work. A month ago, she would have sworn that ineluctable was not in her students' vocabulary. This is really very good, she told Chloe. Chloe smiled. Yay, I thought you'd like it. Jackie had very few edits. She drew Chloe's attention to moments she might expand and language she might tighten. Chloe circled those places, but made no comment besides okay and cool. Do you have your book, Jackie asked? We could talk about when Menelaus is stranded in Egypt and captures the shape-shifting sea god Proteus in order to get home. We have 15 minutes. Chloe looked surprised. Sure, okay, she said. It's probably upstairs. She disappeared from the Skype screen. Jackie considered the empty set. A large mirror hung on the upper left corner of the wall behind the table at which Chloe was working. On the right, a door frame suggested a kitchen further back. She supposed Chloe was at her parents' place, not at school. Both were in New York. Lately, Chloe seemed to go home more and more. The door frame switched, and Jackie noticed a crop of messy blonde hair around a younger version of Chloe's face, peeking around the door. Eyes glanced in the direction Chloe had gone, then back at Jackie. Jackie waved. The girl approached. Jackie saw she was carrying a copy of Ulysses. Are you reading that for school, she asked. The girl nodded, then shook her head. Just reading it, she said. Have you? Jackie nodded. What do you think? Molly's kind of being a dick, she said. She frowned and seemed to think about this. What does Stephen mean about the difference between a thing and its signature? In the Proteus chapter, the whole thing about the ineluctable modality of the visible? Yeah. That's so funny. We were just about to discuss Proteus and the Odyssey. As Jackie asked the girl what she thought Stephen meant, and the girl mused cogently about the relation between objective and subjective reality, a terrible thought nosed its way up. That evening, she said to the puppy, I mean, it's always possible that the younger sister's just been using the word ineluctable around the house. And Chloe picked it up and then incorporated it into her essay. They could talk about books. The puppy cocked its head. His head. If the puppy were Isaac, he would say, or her sister just wrote it for her. People don't become better readers that fast. Think of Occam's razor, the principle that, I know what Occam's razor is, she told the puppy. You're underselling her. She's made tremendous progress lately. I feel like I've taught her things. The puppy/Isaac shrugged. Maybe. The next time she tutored Chloe, she looked for a sign of the sister, but if she was there, she did not appear. Finally, as they were about to sign off, Jackie asked, Was that your sister I met the other day? Chloe looked up sharply. You met Olivia? Jackie tried not to start. She was on her way from the kitchen. It's so nice that you can go home sometimes. Jackie did not tell Isaac that Chloe's sister's name was Olivia. She hadn't mentioned any of the Olivia business to him and couldn't start now. Anyway, there was nothing to tell. She told the puppy, She's so completely different from the Olivia I thought I knew. It made no sense that Chloe's sister would be Olivia for whom everyone mistook Jackie, and yet she could not shake the feeling that somehow they were the same, or at least connected in some vital way. The neighbors still called her Olivia, but now Jackie could not tell whether they did so in jest or in seriousness. Nor did she now feel sanguine in her response. Anyway, the puppy didn't like the Samoyeds. He didn't seem to register them as dogs. Instead of Olivia, whom they both instinctively avoided mentioning, Chloe and Jackie discussed Chloe's family's elderly cat, who had started sleeping on the burner of the gas stove. It's so weird and gross, Chloe said. We put food there. He probably tracks over the litter box and stuff. Maybe he's cold, Jackie suggested. It's probably warm on the stove. Chloe thought about that. It's super dangerous, my sister says. Since the stove is old and there's always a pilot flame or something, he could basically catch fire and then set fire to the whole house. Jackie was horrified. All night she could not stop thinking about Chloe's cat catching fire and no one's doing anything to prevent it. They should put something over the stove, like a baking sheet, she told the puppy, and they should get the cat, I don't know, a heating blanket? She thought of a law student she'd met the previous year, the first person she could remember calling her Olivia, and how his contracts professor would probably put the cat down. The world is a terrible place, she told the puppy. Life is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Hobbes said that, you know. She found herself wondering what Chloe's Olivia would think about Hobbes. Uncertainly, she opened Facebook. Chloe had friended her months ago. It looked like Olivia was not Chloe's younger sister, but her twin at Stanford. Only most of her life seemed to take place in New York. She's taking the semester off, Chloe said later. She cracked up or something. Definitely don't ask me. Isaac and Jackie put together a guest list. It was mostly his friends and her cousins. She felt like she should warn him, but of what? That she was not who she said she was? They'd been together for 5 years, before anyone called her anything but Jackie or Jax. And yet the pretenses under which they were marrying seemed false. They sent out save the dates. Finally, it happened. Chloe left for a lengthy stay in the bathroom, and Olivia appeared, her hair falling shaggily over a t-shirt and pajama bottoms. So it's an orgasm, right? She asked at the end. Molly? Yep, Jackie said. Good for her. What's next for you? Finnegan's Wake? I was thinking Ezra's cantos, or maybe Browning. I heard Ezra liked him. Glad you and old Ez are on a first-name basis. I maybe wouldn't advertise that. He was pretty into Mussolini. Did anyone call him Ez? Olivia seemed fascinated. I don't know. Browning's good, though. Do you have any of him? Olivia thought, I have an anthology. I could get it. Jackie hesitated, then nodded, and Olivia was gone. Jackie thought there was no way she would get back before Chloe did, but she did, the anthology already open. Our interests on the dangerous edge of things, Olivia read. This bishop's also kind of a dick. I bet Molly would like him. Before Jackie could answer, Chloe reappeared. It's super weird that you like to hang out with my tutor, she said, sitting down at the table. I'm sure Mom and Dad would get you one of your very own if you asked. Olivia seemed untroubled. Later, Gator, she said, and left. Jackie wondered if she was the Gator. Chloe was finishing her final English paper on the Odyssey, going over citations and proofreading. Don't forget to sign the academic honesty form, Jackie told her. Lol, Chloe said. Jackie looked up. I mean, it's just talk about a construct. Nobody's honest. I feel like I've failed her, Jackie told the puppy. If she thinks this way, I should have instilled a moral code. I'm her teacher. The puppy looked away. It's not at all the same thing, she told him. Are you crazy? I'm not plagiarizing by being Olivia. She doesn't exist. There's no one to copy. The puppy jumped off the couch. That night, Jackie and Isaac walked the puppy. He strained at the leash. 2 other dogs were ahead. Hi, Louis, Jackie said. How are the Samoyeds? They're doing very well, thanks, Olivia, he smiled. And this little mutt? Better now that he's outside. Didn't like being cooped up when it was cold. I don't blame him, Louis said. Bye now. Once Louis and the dogs had left earshot, Isaac asked, Olivia, why'd he call you that? Jackie's heart beat faster. She felt her lungs constrict. I would love to know the answer to that. I've told him my name, but either he doesn't remember or he thinks calling me something else is cute. She glanced at Isaac. Actually, a lot of people have been calling me Olivia recently. You don't think I look like an Olivia, do you? He looked at her in the darkness. Their street had no lights. You do, sort of. Jackie's definitely the wrong name for you. Wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be funny if when we got married, I accidentally called you Olivia? Oh. Everyone would think you were in love with another woman. No, he said. I'd be marrying her.